After the viral video shook the walls of the hotel, the phones started ringing non-stop. Reporters, board members, former friends, everyone wanted to ask questions or offer statements. But the noise didn't last. Within days, the praise turned into pause, and then silence. Not public outrage, just the kind of silence that comes when powerful people quietly walk away from someone they once protected. His phone, once buzzing every hour, now sat still on the table beside a stack of unopened mail. He stared at it like it had betrayed him. When it finally buzzed, his hand moved fastly to see it was another spam alert. No name he recognized, no apology, no explanation. He tossed it aside. "They'll come around," he muttered to himself. More habit than hope. He picked up a letter from the pile. The hotel's return address stared back. He opened it with fingers that already knew what it was. Termination, no meeting, no farewell. Just a line that said, "Your services are no longer required." He tried calling his daughter. Once, twice. By the third attempt, the phone didn't even ring, straight to voicemail. His chest rose once, then fell. Outside his window, neighbors were talking on their porch. One looked up, saw him watching, and turned away. No wave, no smile, just quiet avoidance. That hit harder than the letter. He sank back into his chair. The silence was no longer empty, it had weight now. Not rage, not regret, just absence. He folded the termination letter carefully and placed it back on the table. This time, he didn't look at his phone. He leaned back, stared at the ceiling, and said absolutely nothing. He walked in with forced ease. A scarf pulled over half his face, like he didn't want to be recognized but also didn't want to appear nervous. The lobby had changed. Warmer lighting, softer music. A woman stood behind the front desk, young, calm, poised. She looked up with a kind of quiet that made him falter just slightly. "I'm checking in," he said, slipping an ID across the counter. "Room should already be reserved." She took the card, looked it over, her fingers paused at the name. Her eyes didn't move. "One moment, sir," she typed. He stood still, fingers tapping once on the marble. "Should be under Douglas King," he added, like repetition might change something. "I checked, sir. There's no reservation under that name." He forced a smile. "Maybe it's under the company account." "There's no company account anymore." He blinked. "Excuse me," her tone didn't shift. "The system's been updated." A man walked past behind her, nodded at her, and paused just long enough to glance at Douglas. The nod he gave him wasn't rude, just ... empty. Like he didn't recognize him anymore. Or didn't need to. "I used to run this place," Douglas said, voice low. "I know," she replied gently. "But today, you're not on the list." He laughed once, bitter. "Did you even check?" This time, she looked him in the eye. "I didn't need to." For a second, he didn't speak. Then he stepped back, glanced around, as if someone might step in and fix this. No one did. The bell avoided eye contact. The doorman kept talking to a guest. Douglas adjusted his scarf. "Right," he whispered, and walked back out slower than he came in. He didn't leave right away. Douglas circled once in the parking lot, came back in slower, tie now visible. Maybe he thought it would help. Maybe he still believed in the weight of old habits. She was still at the desk. He leaned in this time, not far, but just enough. That old managerial posture, chin forward, hands pressed together like prayer without purpose. "You don't know what this lobby used to be," he said softly. She didn't answer. "I built its tone, the scent, the rhythm. Every bell that rings, I ordered that." "You ordered a lot of things," she said, just as calm. "That doesn't mean they were right." He studied her, really looked this time. "You've been trained well." "No one trained me," she replied. I watched. His lip curled slightly. "This lobby," he said again, slower now, "isn't for everyone." She tilted her head, not blinking. "No, it never was." The silence settled like dust. He looked around the lobby, the new paintings, the calm flow of people. A young couple walked past with ease, the man nodding to her as if they were friends. Another employee waved from behind the concierge table. She waved back. None of them looked his way. "Things have changed," he muttered. "They've been changing," she corrected. "You just never noticed." He paused. "Is this personal?" "No," she said. "But it should have been, a long time ago." For a second, something cracked behind his eyes. Not anger, just realization, the weight of irrelevance, the fear of not being needed anymore. He stood up straighter, adjusted his coat, nodded like a man exiting his own funeral. Then, without another word, he walked out a little quicker. This time she watched the doors close behind him, didn't move, didn't sigh, just blinked once. slow, calm, as if sealing something behind her eyes. A younger staff member approached quietly. "You okay?" She nodded. "He won't be back." The girl hesitated, then leaned in. "I heard he used to, yeah," she said, cutting gently. "He did." There was no need to explain further. Everyone in that building knew the stories. Not from her lips, but from the way she walked past rooms he once ran. From the way policies shifted without meetings. "I would have said something," the girl whispered loud. "That's how they win," she said, finally exhaling. "They make you louder so they can call you angry." The girl frowned. "But you're not." I just learned where to put it." She walked toward the back hallway, past portraits he'd once hung of executives who never looked like her. They'd been removed quietly. No announcement. Just gone. In the staff lounge. Someone turned the TV down when she walked in. The room stiffened, as if people expected her to say something, maybe brag, maybe break. She just poured herself tea. "You good, ma'am?" asked one of the bellmen. She stirred the cup. "Better than I thought I'd be." Her voice never rose. Not once, because it didn't have to. He had power when silence protected him. She had power when silence didn't stop her. Outside the lounge, a notification buzzed on her phone. A photo someone had snapped it from across the street. Douglas, walking away, coat tight, head down. The caption read, "Former manager turned away at his own door." She didn't repost it. She didn't even smile. She just locked her phone and took a sip. The footage played muted on a star phone, her standing in the lobby.com/silent. Then to guards entering from the side. Not frantic, not aggressive, just certain. A white man behind the desk, not even looking at her, nodded once. "That's all it took, ma'am." "We'll need you to leave," one guard said in the clip. She hadn't raised her voice. "I work here," she said quietly. "No badge, no entry." The second one replied, already guiding her toward the doors. No one asked for clarification. No one checked the system. They didn't even glance at the white man, just followed his word like it was law. Later, in the break room, the clip paused on her face, unreadable, but not confused. Tired. She didn't even argue. Someone muttered, "She shouldn't have had to," said another. "She owns this place now," whispered the bellman. "That's her lobby." Silence hung in the room. She knew it would happen. One housekeeper finally said, "Look at her face. That's not shock. That's memory." In her office upstairs, she watched the same footage. No sound, no context, just her being removed from a building she owned. Her assistant hesitated by the door. "Should we release a statement?" She shook her head. "Should we fire him?" Another pause. Then, "We don't need to." She clicked to the next video. Another angle. Same story, no badge, no voice raised. Just a quiet woman surrounded by systems built to silence her. She didn't flinch in the footage, didn't resist. And somehow that made it worse, because everyone watching now knew security didn't follow truth. They followed hierarchy, and that man had lost his place in it. The wheels scraped softly against the marble floor. Her suitcase caught the edge of the rug, bounced, then steadied behind her heel. He stood behind the desk, still silent, watching her walk. "Do you know who she is?" A voice whispered from the side. The intern, young, pale, too nervous to raise her eyes. "I said, do you know who she is?" The bellman, older, firmer now. The man behind the desk didn't answer. She didn't even say a word. The intern murmured, "They just told her to leave." "And she did," he muttered, voice dry. "What does that tell you?" "That she didn't need to explain herself." She reached the glass doors. They parted without a sound. Her bag rolled out before she did a slow, defiant glide. The kind of exit made without apology. She never turned. Not to the man, not to the security still watching, unsure now. Not to the front desk, where whispers had replaced commands. She just walked, and somehow that silence was louder than anything she could have said. Inside, the man behind the desk adjusted his tie. Useless gesture. His hands were shaking. "You're done," the bellman said, voice low. He looked up. "Excuse me, you heard me." She didn't have to. We all saw it. She could have yelled, but she didn't. A long pause. Even the phones stopped ringing. He looked toward the doors, like expecting her to come back. "She won't," the bellman added. "But trust me, you'll feel it." Outside, her bag rolled steady over the concrete. She paused, only one shoulder squared, chin high, then kept walking. The door closed behind her, and upstairs, a resignation letter hit the inbox without a subject line. She didn't look back. But as she passed the last column, her eyes fell on the floor, polished, patterned, cold. then the walls, then the small brass nameplate beneath the front desk monitor. She read it once, quietly, as if filing it away. Not for now, for later. Inside, the intern was still standing near the counter, frozen. The bellman had returned to his post, but the energy in the lobby had shifted. Muted now, unsettled. She didn't even flinch, the intern said. No, the bellman replied. She won't forget this though. The manager reappeared from a side door, phone in hand, voice lowered. She gone? You mean the owner? The bellman asked. That landed heavier than it should have. He blinked. What? The bellman didn't repeat himself. She's not. The manager stopped. His eyes darted to the intern, then back to the bellman. You think she's really? She didn't say a word, the intern whispered. Didn't need to. Silence again. And then she looked at the nameplate that made the manager pause. He turned, slowly, toward the desk. Would she? She wasn't looking at people, the bellman said. She was looking at systems. The manager scoffed, but his laugh caught in his throat. She's not coming back. No, the bellman replied. But her lawyers might. The manager adjusted the papers on the counter. Hands too fast. Eyes too slow. Outside she stood, at the curb, pulling out her phone. No anger, no tears, just a calm that came from knowing something they didn't. She took a picture of the building, no filter, no caption, just evidence, then slipped the phone back into her coat pocket and walked away, still silent, still composed, but memorizing everything. The lobby was still humming, but softer now, like the room itself was reconsidering what had just happened. She's gone, the manager asked, brushing imaginary dust off his suit. The young concierge didn't respond right away. His eyes were still fixed on the glass doors, as if waiting for them to open again. She didn't argue, he muttered. What's that supposed to mean? The manager asked, smirking. You think she was someone important? The boy blinked, hesitated. I don't know. She looked like she knew everything, not just where she was, but who she was. The manager scoffed, reaching for the clipboard. She didn't even belong here. Wrong tone, wrong attitude. Guests don't walk in here like that. She didn't ask for anything, the boy added quietly. She didn't have to. That stopped the manager's pen mid-stroke. Don't start getting ideas, he warned. This place runs on order. People step out of line. We correct it. The boy didn't nod. He didn't speak. Just kept staring at the door. Like the echo of her silence was louder than anything else in the room. She was just another guest. The manager insisted. The boy turned to him. Then why do you look nervous? The room fell still. The manager's grip tightened on the pen. Watch your tone. I just think, the boy said, slower now. If she was nobody, you wouldn't still be talking about her for a beat. Neither moved you, just kicked out your future. The boy murmured. The manager's jaw clenched, but no words came. Then the bell chimed. A new guest entered. The room moved on, but the boy didn't. He just whispered under his breath, she'll be back. ChatGPT said. The boardroom lights buzzed faintly above her as she walked in, quiet, deliberate. She didn't sit. Not yet. Just stood near the end of the long glass table, her eyes trailing along the edge like she was checking for dust. No one spoke first. They weren't sure if they should. The regional manager cleared his throat. You, wanted this meeting. She looked at him only briefly, then shifted her gaze to the floor. The same kind of marble, different polish. I used to scrub that, she said calmly, on my knees, every night. Back when the night crew came through the side door, one of the younger execs glanced around, uncomfortable. I'm sorry, I don't understand. You don't have to, she replied, now walking slowly along the wall. None of you were ever expected to. The oldest man at the table leaned forward. You're the new owner of not new, she cut in gently. Just never seen. They fell silent. She stopped near the coffee cart. Her fingers brushed the rim of a porcelain cup. I was the girl with the mop who didn't speak. Not because I couldn't, because it didn't matter. One executive tried to shift the mood. Well, clearly you've succeeded. That's admirable. She turned to face them fully. You think this is about admiration? The words hung heavy. She walked back to the head of the table, finally pulling out the chair. Slowly, I remember every person who looked through me, not past me, through me. The regional manager tried to regain composure. We didn't know. I did, she interrupted. That was enough. She sat, folded her hands, and said nothing else. She didn't flinch when the tall man leaned in with a smile too polished to be kind. You're so articulate, he said, swirling his coffee like it helped the words settle better. She blinked once slowly. Thank you. Another executive chuckled across the table. And so composed. Really impressive. You carry yourself well, she finished for him. He paused, caught. I just meant, professional. I know, she said. Her voice didn't rise, didn't need to. There was a silence, not long, but enough. The kind that stripped a room. She glanced at the woman scribbling notes nearby. Their eyes met briefly. The woman looked down. I've been called professional before, she said quietly, but usually with surprise. Like I beat some odds. I wasn't told I was against. The first man laughed. Nervous now. It was meant as a compliment. I know, she replied again, softer this time. That's the part that stings. He looked to the others for rescue. But no one jumped in. I used to think those comments were harmless, she continued, folding her hands, until I realized how many times they were meant to separate me from who you think the rest of us are. A younger man leaned forward, voice low. We don't see you that way. She looked at him. But you see someone that way, and then you praise me for not being them. Nobody moved. Asterisk, it doesn't have to scream, she added. Racism can wear a smile, offer you coffee, compliment your tone. She stood up slowly, her chair easing back with a quiet groan. Then one last look around the room. I speak well because I've had to, and she walked out. The silence after she left the boardroom lingered like smoke. No one knew where to look. No one asked if she'd be back. She didn't go far. In her private office, the one they once told her she wasn't seasoned enough to earn, she sat quietly, watching her own reflection in the glass. A soft knock. Then the door creaked. Open. Miranda, the same junior associate they once promoted over her, stepped in. I didn't know, Miranda said, hesitant. About all that. What they said before. You didn't have to know, she replied without looking up. You benefited from it. Miranda shifted. I thought you didn't mind. You never said anything. She finally turned. Because when I did speak, it cost me. Miranda's voice wavered. But you stayed. You kept working like nothing happened. She leaned forward, voice even. Because I was building something bigger. Not for them, for myself. I stayed quiet, so I could afford to one day own what they thought I'd begged to enter. Miranda looked down. I'm sorry. She stood, walked to the window, arms crossed. They passed me over 3 times. Gave my ideas to men who couldn't spell half the jargon. Called me emotional when I asked for equal pay. She turned, locking eyes. And I stayed. Bought stock. Acquired land. Watched every layoff. Every meeting. Every title change. Miranda's throat tightened. You built this. I did, she said softly. In silence. In rooms they didn't know I was watching. Miranda nodded, eyes damp. And now. She walked past her toward the door, hand on the handle. Now. She paused. They work in a chain I owned, and they don't even know it. Then she opened the door and stepped out. ChatGPT said. The door shut behind her, the soft click cutting through the hum of the lobby. She smoothed her blazer, face still, voice measured. You wanted to see me. Mr. Klein didn't look up right away, just tapped the paper on his desk. We've received another complaint. Guest said your tone was too casual. She didn't flinch. I said have a good one. He nodded slowly. Right, that's not the brand language we prefer. She let the words sit, then asked quietly, what language is that, exactly? He glanced up. Warm, professional, consistent. James cursed at a guest last week. Loud enough I heard it from the hallway. What part of the brand is that? A beat of silence. He shifted in his chair. James has rapport. He knows how to read the room. She folded her arms. So do I. I just don't smile the way you want me to. That's not fair, he said, suddenly defensive. This isn't about race. No. Her voice barely rose. Then why is every attitude write-up got a black name at the top? Mr. Klein leaned back, eyes narrowing. You're making this bigger than it is. She leaned forward. No, you made it small, quiet, hidden in performance reviews and write-ups and policy language that shifts like smoke. A pause. He looked away. She straightened, smoothing the crease in her skirt. I learned the rules. I played by them. Still, got sent to HR for being too direct. Meanwhile, James jokes about crazy guests and gets a bonus. Klein stood, unsure. You're not being objective. I don't need to be. Her voice was calm. I'm being honest. She walked to the door. He called after her. You're walking away from your job. She paused. No, she said. I'm walking toward my worth. Asterisk. The video played on silent loop behind the front desk. A grainy clip from 2 years ago. A black man in a navy blazer, standing still while security crowded him near the lounge bar. He wasn't loud. He wasn't angry. Just confused. Alicia stared at the screen. Her voice came slow. You told us it was nothing. Mr. Klein stood stiff beside her. At the time, it looked like a misunderstanding. No, she didn't look at him. It looked like what it was. You just decided to call it something else. He exhaled. The guest wasn't staying with us. He walked into the lounge unregistered. She turned toward him. He was waiting for his wife. She had the reservation. He knew that. He paused. We didn't have all the facts. Her voice lowered. We did. He sent emails, filed a report. You told us to delete it from the log. Klein's jaw tightened. I don't recall giving that instruction. You don't recall a lot, she said quietly. He stepped back from the desk. It's resurfacing now because someone leaked it. Doesn't mean it's fair context. She pointed at the screen. You don't get to decide what's fair anymore. People are watching now. A moment passed. Guests glanced toward the screen. A bellhop slowed mid-step. Klein muttered, "You should be careful. Getting too involved in this." Alicia raised an eyebrow. What makes me difficult? Angry? Or just aware? He looked at her, really looked like he hadn't before. The air shifted. She straightened the video monitor. You buried a man's truth, and you're digging it back up. She nodded. No, it never stayed buried. You all just pretended not to hear the scream under the carpet. He didn't respond. He didn't have to. Everyone else had already heard it. The hallway was quiet now, just the faint sound of a vacuum turning off in one of the rooms. Alina stood outside the manager's office, her hands folded, shoulders drawn in. She didn't knock. She just said it. I used to hear everything. Through the vent. Mr. Klein glanced up from his desk. Excuse me. The walls, they carry sound. You forget that when you're laughing. He leaned back slowly. I'm not sure I understand. I cleaned that hallway for 4 years. Room 212 to 218. The air vent connects to this office. He closed his laptop. Okay, her eyes didn't move. I heard the jokes about the guests, about how they always expect free stuff, how they make scenes, about their names. Alina, she kept going. I didn't say anything. I needed the job, I thought. Maybe it wasn't meant the way it sounded. Silence hung there. But then I saw her. That woman you had escorted out last week. Quiet, dressed nice, crying in the lobby. Security called her another one. He sat still. We followed protocol. No, you followed habit, she said. His eyes narrowed. You think this is your moment to accuse me? She shook her head. No, I'm not accusing you. I'm remembering out loud. Something in his face flickered, just for a second. I used to wipe your nameplate, she whispered. It used to feel heavy, important. Now it just looks like dust. He tried to speak, but stopped. She stepped back. I'll testify, if anyone asks. Elena, what do you think that'll change? Maybe nothing, she said, turning to leave. But maybe it makes the next woman pause before she laughs in here. And just like that, she was gone. The door left slightly open, air still humming through the vent. Before we start, said Ms. Hines, adjusting her glasses, I'd like to ask one question. The two internal affairs officers glanced at each other. The younger one, Officer Laird, nodded stiffly. Why now? She asked quietly. Why are you here now? There was a pause. The older man, Sergeant Dobbins, cleared his throat. New evidence surfaced to video testimony. You had testimony 2 years ago, she said, her voice steady. From Jamal Ricks, from Elena Martinez. You buried both. Dobbins didn't answer. Laird looked down at his notes. You let them walk, she continued. The manager, the desk clerk, the off-duty cop who shoved that boy in the parking lot. All of them. Laird's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. We weren't allowed to proceed. By who? She asked. He blinked. We can't say. You're here because someone else pulled the thread, not because you wanted to. That's the truth. Dobbins sighed. We're here now. Doesn't that count for something? She leaned back, folding her arms. It would have counted then. The room went still. Behind the silence, she could feel it. The shift. The guilt they carried wasn't fresh. It had accumulated. Laird finally said, This isn't the first time, but it might be the last. There's pressure now. Outside. Public. And inside. She asked. Any pressure from your own conscience? He didn't respond, but his eyes softened. She stood up. I'll give my statement. But don't expect credit. Don't expect me to thank you for being late. Dobbins looked at her, jaw clenched. We're trying to fix it. She paused at the door, then stopped whispering about the pattern. Say it out loud. And with that, she left, leaving the word pattern to echo in their silence like a verdict. ChatGPT said. She's the owner. The words slipped out of the reporter's mouth like he wasn't supposed to say them, like saying it too loud would snap something in the air. No one answered. Not right away. From the back of the lobby, one of the desk clerks slowly lowered. The phone. She didn't blink, didn't speak, just stared. The general manager, Mr. Wilkes, stood stiff, jaw locked. That can't be accurate, but it was. And everybody knew it now. Another reporter, the woman with the channel mic still clipped to her coat, stepped forward. Can we confirm, is it true? The woman escorted out. She's the majority stakeholder. A slow nod came from the corporate rep who had just arrived, late and already sweating. Yes, Ms. Iona Bell is the sole majority owner of this hotel and 3 others in the chain. Gasps weren't loud, just small intakes of breath, sharp enough to cut. The front desk clerk took a step back. We thought she was just a guest. Iona's voice rang from behind them, calm even present. People turned. She walked forward slowly, no rush in her steps. Her eyes were steady, not angry, not loud, just clear. I watched every one of you turn your heads when I asked for help, she said. Every single one. Mr. Wilkes opened his mouth, then shut it. I gave you a chance to treat people right, she continued. Didn't matter who I was. That was the test. No one moved. I'm not here for revenge, she added, quiet. Now, just accountability. And in that moment, with no yelling, no grand announcement, the room broke open. Not loud, just broken. No one expected it to blow up like that. It started with a 15-second clip, Iona standing still, arms folded, while Mr. Wilkes pointed toward the exit like she was trash left too long in the lobby. No yelling, no resistance. Just a woman, quiet, breathing through a moment the world had seen too many times. And still, it hit different. This her? Someone asked, scrolling through their phone behind the counter the next morning. Yeah, the younger clerk replied, not meeting anyone's eyes. It's everywhere now. There were no overlays, no music, just raw footage. Her silence. His tone, you're not allowed here, he'd said in the clip. She didn't even flinch. Across the room, the corporate lawyer leaned against the wall, pale and sweaty. We're not commenting at this time, he mumbled to the third reporter. That morning, but the damage wasn't waiting for permission. Screens lit up, laptops refreshed. Guests looked at the staff different now, not angry, just aware. One woman passed the front desk without speaking, then doubled back. You know, she said quietly to the receptionist, I saw her that day. She smiled at me. The girl looked up, and you all acted like she was invisible. Silence. Upstairs. Iona sat by the window of her suite, still watching. A junior manager knocked. There's, media downstairs, and lawyers. They want to speak with you. She didn't look at him, just sipped her tea. Ma'am. I'm not suing, she said softly. He blinked. They already saw what they needed to see. A pause stretched. He cleared his throat. Then, what do you want? Iona finally turned. Change, she said, but not because it's forced, because now you know I was watching the whole time. The lobby was nearly empty when the last staff member clocked out. No one said much after the lawyer's statement, just quiet nods and stiff glances. The tension hadn't gone away, it had just grown still. Mr. Wilkes had already left, quick, without looking back. The receptionist didn't ask where he went. No one did. By midnight the only sounds were the soft hum of the ceiling vents and the occasional shuffle of feet. A man in maintenance uniform approached the entrance. He held a small screwdriver, a folded cloth, and a new nameplate tucked under his arm. No cameras, no speech. He knelt beside the brass plaque that had lived there for 30 years. Need help? Asked a voice behind him. He turned. I stood by the elevator. But not cold. I've got it, he said. She stepped closer. You sure? He nodded, started loosening the screws. He used to brag this plaque would outlive him. Iona's eyes dropped to it. He was wrong. The last screw clinked onto the marble. The old plate came off without resistance. Funny, he said. No one told me to change it. She didn't answer, but I figured, some things don't need permission. He wiped the surface clean, careful, respectful. Then he pressed the new plate in place. AW Holdings. It caught the light, subtle, dignified. He stood, eyes flicking to her. Will there be, like a ceremony or something? She shook her head. This is enough. A pause. Then he offered a quiet smile, one full of something like pride. He walked away, leaving her alone with a new beginning. Iona stood there, reading her initials like a whisper. For the first time in days, she exhaled, not relief, but release. A spoon clinked against porcelain. Mr. Wilkes stirred his coffee with slow, nervous circles. His tie was slightly loose, his collar damp. He didn't notice the subtle hush in the room, how no one laughed at his usual jokes, how the energy shifted the moment the elevator dinged. "She's here," the receptionist whispered near the doorway. He didn't turn. He assumed another investor, maybe a consultant. His hands trembled just slightly as he picked up the cup. He turned, smiling until he saw who had entered. Iona stepped in with stillness, not dramatic, not rushed, just calm. Her gaze didn't search for anyone. It already knew where power now sat. He froze mid-step. "You," he said, voice to soft. She sat at the head of the table, her folder unopened, hands clasped gently. She didn't smile. "Good morning," she said simply. The board members, once complicit in silence, now avoided Wilkes' eyes. One cleared his throat, another shifted in his seat. Even the air seemed heavier. Wilkes glanced at the chair beside her, then at his usual seat. He started. "I don't need you to confirm who I am," she interrupted. Silence. He chuckled, weakly. "So this is about making a point." She tilted her head. "No, that part already made itself." A pause. He looked to the others for help. No one moved. "I gave this company 30 years, he said. "And I gave it silence," she replied. "We're not the same." He opened his mouth, then closed it. She leaned in, calm and cutting. "You're here for the audit review. That's all." Her voice never rose, but everyone in the room felt it. The moment control shifted, and history turned without needing applause. Wilkes reached for the water glass, but his hand twitched mid-air. He set it back down without drinking. Across the table, Iona didn't move. Her eyes held him, steady and unreadable. "So," he started, voice thin, "we're doing this here now." No answer, just the soft scrape of a folder being slid forward. Board member Chavez cleared her throat and opened it. "Your signatures on all of these," she said quietly. Wilkes blinked. Those are old HR records. Context matters." Iona finally leaned back, calm, wordless. Another member spoke up. "You shut down every internal review." "I followed protocol," he snapped. Iona's voice was barely above a whisper. "Protocol was me walking out the door." He turned to her quickly, jaw clenched. "I didn't know, you didn't ask," she said. A pause. Heavy final. Wilkes reached for the paper. His finger hovered over a complaint, -2016. "A junior analyst." The words blurred. "I thought we resolved this." "No," said Chavez. "You buried it." His breath caught. His face tightened as he tried to speak, but nothing came. Iona didn't gloat. She didn't move. Her silence became the loudest voice in the room. Another folder was pushed forward. Wilkes shook his head slowly, as if denying the very table was trying to protect the company. "You protected yourself," Iona said. Not unkind, just true. He looked at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. Maybe he never did. Someone coughed. The silence grew teeth. Then came the smallest tremble, his jaw pulsing. Iona stood. "We'll let legal handle the rest." She walked out without looking back. He remained seated, sweating, alone in the noise of his own collapse. The lights dimmed slightly as the screen flickered on. No music, no dramatic build-up, just grainy footage of a little girl crying in a hospital hallway while nurses walked past, and one, in particular, never looked down. Iona stood beside the screen, not behind a podium, not holding notes, just standing. This was Tuesday, March 14th. She waited for 47 minutes. The room didn't breathe. Wilkes stared at the floor. He knew what was coming, and he knew he couldn't interrupt. She had a fever of 103. Her mother tried to speak to 3 nurses. No one listened. Security was called instead. She didn't flinch. Her voice never rose. "The nurse assigned that day. You assigned her after she failed to internal evaluations." A click, another photo, this time an email thread, his name at the bottom. Wilkes rubbed his face slowly, as if wiping away time. But the silence didn't move. "You didn't see me then," Iona said softly, eyes still locked on him. "But now the whole world sees you." Gasps didn't come, just stillness. She turned slightly, gesturing toward a board member. "This footage reached 3 million views in 72 hours. That's more eyes than any audit report we've ever filed." Wilkes opened his mouth. She raised one hand, not to silence him, just to finish. "This isn't vengeance," she said. "It's visibility. That's all we ever asked for." He finally looked up, red eyes, a mouth held too tight. "I didn't know. You didn't want to." The screen turned off. The room returned to full light. Iona stepped back, and for the first time Wilkes looked small, not because she yelled, but because she didn't have to. The truth had done the heavy lifting. He stared at the blinking cursor on his screen. No new emails. Just silence, the kind that didn't hum, didn't buzz, didn't explain itself. His office door, once always cracked open, now stayed shut from the outside. No knocks, no footsteps. Wilkes cleared his throat, just to hear a sound. Carmen. He called toward his assistant's desk. Can you? She's gone, said a voice from behind. He turned, HR clipboard in hand. No eye contact. Effective immediately. My position, she handed him a folder, was dissolved this morning. His fingers brushed the edge of the paper. It didn't feel real. I built this place. No one's denying that. He gave a short laugh, dry, bitter. I gave 20 years. And now you've been given 20 seconds. Her tone wasn't cold, just final. He looked down at his phone. 10 missed calls. None from his daughter. I didn't mean for it to go that far, he muttered. No one ever does. The office, lights seemed harsher now. The same walls, but the air had changed. He walked past the break room. Conversation stopped, averted eyes. One man stood up, but didn't speak, just left. The security guard at the exit didn't smile today. Cards already deactivated, the guard said. Not unkindly. Wilkes stared at the scanner, blinking red. What happens now? The guard hesitated, then shrugged. Depends on what you learned. He stepped outside. No cameras, no reporters, just wind. On his phone, a single message loaded his daughter. One sentence, you made me invisible. Now you know how it feels. He didn't reply. Not because he had nothing to say, but because nothing would have mattered now. And maybe that was the loudest verdict of all. ChatGPT said. The phone lay face down on the kitchen counter, screen dark. He hadn't touched it in hours, maybe days. Not since the last text from his daughter, which still sat unanswered. He stared at the blinking microwave clock like it might blink back. Should I call again? He mumbled out the room. Like everything else lately, gave him nothing. He picked up the phone, thumb hovering over her name. Just pick up, he whispered. It rang once, then nothing again. Straight to voicemail. Asterisk, he left none. Words didn't work anymore. The mail slot clicked. He walked slowly, almost afraid. A brown envelope, no return address. Inside the hotel cancellation notice. We reserve the right to refuse service. He sank onto the couch, fingers shaking. There was no press release, no news crew outside, just silence. That cruel, creeping kind. He pulled up her Instagram. Her stories were gone. He wasn't blocked, just no longer there. His eyes flicked to the photos still on the mantel. Her graduation, the smile, the hug, the way she used to rest her head on his shoulder. He walked to the frame, touched the glass gently. I was trying to protect the company, he said quietly, to no one. You don't understand what it cost me. Behind him, the phone buzzed. He turned fast. Spam. He didn't sit back down. He just stood there, holding the phone like it might mean something again. She used to call every Sunday, even when she was busy, even if she only had 5 minutes now. Nothing, not anger, not protest, just nothing. And for the first time, he realized, the silence wasn't waiting to be filled, it was the answer. Why are they using my face? He whispered, scrolling. His jaw clenched with every headline. No yelling, no threats, just screenshots. His expression mid-sentence, half superiority now, a meme. Across the table. His wife said nothing. Her coffee went cold between her fingers. They're twisting it, he muttered. That video's out of context. She didn't look up. I didn't know who she was. Nobody told me. She didn't need to tell you, she said softly. Blinked. So what? I was just supposed to. You were supposed to treat her like a person. The silence after that line was heavy, not angry, just done. He looked at the screen again, his own eyes staring back, arrogant, dismissive. Frozen forever. I was just doing my job. No, she said. You were doing what you thought your job allowed. His throat tightened. He refreshed the page again. Another article, another cropped photo. Not her, him. The man who got fired. The man who told a black woman to leave. Her own lobby. She never raised her voice. Good morning, Miss Blake, the new front desk clerk said. Standing taller than needed, she offered a small nod, not slowing down. Her heels clicked steadily across the lobby, the same floors she'd been escorted across once, told she didn't belong. Now, no one dared look away. A bellhop paused mid-stride. An older concierge nodded respectfully. No one smiled, but no one blinked either. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Behind her, a guest whispered, "That's her." Another added, "The one from the video. She owns this place." Someone else murmured, softer, like reverence, but she kept walking. Past the elevator she once waited beside, past the security desk that used to radio her movements. She stopped briefly near the same leather chairs where she'd once stood waiting to be approved. Now, even the silence respected her. "Ma'am," a nervous voice called gently. She turned. It was the same doorman from before, the one who hadn't said anything that day. "I just wanted to say I'm glad you came back." She studied him, not cruelly, not cold, just ... aware. "You stayed quiet," she said plainly. His face flushed. "I didn't know what to do." "You still don't." He nodded once, ashamed but grateful she even looked his way. She stepped forward again, her pace slow, like memory had waited. At the hallway's end, her initials now shown on the glass office door. No full name, no titles, just RB. Clean, quiet power. She reached for the handle, paused, then she smiled. Not for them, but for herself. No grand return, no press release, just presence. And for the first time, every eye in that lobby looked without question, without doubt, knew who she was now. "Ma'am, you're needed in the boardroom," her assistant said quietly. She didn't rush. She closed the file in front of her, stood, and adjusted the single bracelet on her wrist, the same one she wore the day they asked her to leave. When she entered the room, voices stopped. All 12 board members looked up. Some shifted uncomfortably, a few offered tight smiles, but none spoke first. She took her seat at the head of the table. A pause lingered. "I suppose," one man finally muttered, "we should ... congratulate you." She looked at him calm, unreadable. "No need." Another woman leaned forward. "Your discretion through all this ... it's been noted. You could have taken this public, but you didn't." "I wasn't silent," she said. "I just didn't raise my voice." Someone exhaled sharply. "Still, most people would have." "I'm not most people." She didn't blink, didn't fidget, just was. A younger member cleared his throat. "So ... what do you want us to do?" She looked around. "Steady, do your jobs. But do them with eyes open this time." One man shifted. "If this is about what happened in the lobby, it's not," she cut in. "That was a moment. I'm building a world." Silence again. Heavy, like truth had fogged the room. A woman across the table nodded slowly. "You're not here for revenge?" "No. I'm here because I earned this seat. Years before, you noticed. There was no applause, no praise, just understanding that power wasn't in the volume of her voice, it was in the way no one could ignore her anymore, not because she shouted, but because she stayed. And in staying, she changed everything. Without noise, just presence, just legacy.